Miss Martin Muses. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses, where we muse upon what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. Today we're talking about something that makes me very happy and sometimes does make me cry because I cry when I am frustrated, and that is none other than gaming. Because gaming is a thought, a word, an idea, and an adjective. and my co host today, all the way from the future, and a northern latitude, it is none other than the one, the only, the Viking himself, Steve Kenobi.
Hello.
Hello. Well, we are here yapping about gaming and more because also I just gotten done finishing a book on Richard Garriott, who had a very fascinating, oh my gosh, a very fascinating life. I'm getting an echo. Oh, so I digress. That's something I'll edit out later because I'm gonna eat it. Steve, well, you've been a gamer your whole life. I didn't know, what was some of the first games that you played?
Of Commodore 64. It was, I visited a friend who had a Commodore 64, and we played a game called Save New York,
Ooh.
which is you're supposed to play as a team on it and basically save New York. You're playing, one has a white plane, one has a purple one. And you can exit the plane and head into the sewers as well. But these alien spider things start chewing up the buildings. You have to shoot them down before they destroy a skyscraper or something. And sometimes they'll lay eggs, and the offspring will head down into the sewers. So you have to go down there and avoid being hit by trains. And, kill them.
Well,
the thing is, though, the game has friendly fire.
Oh shit!
Which means we didn't play to save the city at all. It was all out war.
Oh, poor. And so, did you all have any fights like between friends?
No, we just killed each other in the game.
Oh, okay. So it didn't spill over into
No,
animosity.
well, not that time. No.
All right. Well, that's cool. Yeah. My first one that I remember was Space Invaders
Oh
because that was
yeah.
a big thing in arcade.
Fun thing with if you had a Commodore 64 and you had Ghostbusters on it, while the Ghostbusters game was loading, you could play as Space Invaders.
Ooh.
So you basically had a waiting game.
Nice. Oh, and we have also from the future, Archer Collins just caught the start of the stream. Yes, he's currently playing Fallout 3 with a few mods rather. One of the best games I played was Marsport on a Spectrum 48. No, that's not a typo. Well, you know Fallout 3, don't you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm actually currently playing Fallout New Vegas, which uses the same engine. So yeah, I played 1 and 2 back in the day as well. But those are Fallout 3 and 4. 3 and New Vegas uses the same engine as Oblivion, the fourth Elder Scrolls game, and the Fallout 4 uses the same engine as Skyrim.
Oh. Well, okay. So because they were done around the same time. Is that part of it? Because I'm ignorant.
Yeah, they're not too far apart.
Now Archer mentions mods. I didn't even think about mods with Fallout. I only know how mods work on Skyrim.
Yeah, they work the same way in Fallout 4 if you're playing it on the console, but If you're playing on a PC, you can mod pretty much any game.
What kind of
Yeah.
mods do you like to do?
I don't have a good PC, so I don't really mod that much. But
Oh, okay. I like I said, I only know how it works on Skyrim, so oh my gosh, if there's even more mods I could do. But then again, if you do too many mods on the Xbox, it'll kick you off and get buggy. At least with I
yeah,
find.
yeah, because they're not compatible.
No. One of these days I'm going to learn about the mysteries of PC gaming. I'm too much of a boomer for much more than that. Archer Collins says, I replayed FNV, probably Fallout New Vegas recently, again with mods this time. Need a new machine before I can play F4. Also played the Elder Scroll games on PC. Wow.
Oh yeah, there's if you have a an account on GOG, you can get the fan made remake of the Elder Scrolls 2 with enhanced graphics, and it's most of the bugs are fixed, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, worth it.
Oh, well, here they're there. Yeah, I wish they would do some of that with the not that one, but whatever was the one before Skyrim.
Um, no, that's Oblivion.
Oh, never. Okay. Yeah. I mainly use area mission type mods. I don't know what that means, but that sounds cool.
Well, it adds quests.
Oh, dot mission type mods. Okay. Yeah, the mods I use on Skyrim are things like you can get different kind of clothes and hairstyles and different houses. Skyrim, some of Skyrim's best mods. Well, the you told me about them, Steve, was the one where it has a better map and it has the enhanced Lydia. I guess the guy's like enhanced Lydia.
Yeah, it basically removes the clouds and stuff from the map.
Yeah. Yeah, Gravy D is here. What up, Teresa and Steve? And Chrysanthus here. Yay. Hello, is it Chrysanthus, everyone? Yeah. Archer Collins says, apart from a 1970s era Atari console, think Pong type, I've only played on a computer Spectrum, Atari ST, Amiga 500, and then various PCs. Wow. So you're not a part of my world at all when it comes to that.
Now he's not far from what I used to play on, but I didn't have a Spectrum or an Atari, but I had a Commodore 64. Still have it.
Yeah, and recently, if you follow Stieg on Twitter, he really set it up really cool in his apartment.
Yeah, I've been testing the cassette tapes to see what still works,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting wonky. Cassette tapes don't last forever,
No.
but all the Commodore 64 games are free on the internet legally, and you can also download an emulator to play them. And in addition to that, you can get a joystick converter, like a joystick to USB thing. So you could actually use the original Commodore 64 joysticks on the PC. So it's pretty much as good as it, used to be.
Oh, well, that's pretty badass, actually. I approve. I did have an Atari, well, and something called the Odyssey. It didn't take off like the Atari. I think it was kind of like the way the beta and the VCR was. For a while, they were competing, and then VCR won. That's what happened.
Oh, with in the 80s, there was actually a computer gaming industry crash. A lot of new consoles at the time flopped hard. and there were bankruptcies and all that stuff. Nintendo survived because Nintendo had a mascot, so everyone knew what a Nintendo was, right? And it was Mario.
Ah.
So when parents were buying consoles and stuff to kids, they bought the Nintendo because they're like, okay, Mario, I've heard of that, right? Kids like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was something about Pac-Man as well, because that's also a mascot. Was sold an insane amount of arcade copies.
Yeah. Well, and I first remember Mario from Donkey Kong. So that was like name and
Yeah.
visual recognition.
Yeah. Before that, it was Jumpman. Um, that was Mario's first name. I think he's called Jumpman in Donkey Kong. But here's a fun thing: it was never supposed to be Mario. It was supposed to be a Popeye game, but they couldn't get the license for Popeye, so they came up with the famous janitor instead, or other Jumpman, who later became Mario.
Well, the more you know. I did not know that.
Yeah. So if they had gotten the Popeye rights, no Mario.
Oh my gosh. What would my tweens and teens have been?
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, it probably would have been similar gameplay, but it would have been Popeye. And I'm thinking the people who have the rights to Popeye are beating themselves up.
Oh, they would have made a gazillion dollars. Yeah. Question for Steek. Did you ever get those books or magazines that let you write your own games in BASIC?
I had a few Commodore 64 magazines that kind of let you create some text-based games, I think, but I never did.
Okay. I remember the strategy games we would get. My mom would use some other magazines for the Zelda. I think that was, and you would get hints and Easter eggs like what we used to get, what we get now by Googling and seeing it on YouTube. We used to have to wait and get the monthly magazine. Yeah. Gravy D says, I collect retro consoles. NES was my first console I had as a kid. Jumpman says Meteor. So he knows what we're talking about. And he says his first console was an Atari 2600. Oh, gosh, no. Archer Collins says, so in another universe, is there a Popeye movie starring Chris Pratt? Oh, Derek Gregory, I think I know what you're talking about. Hello, Derek Gregory. Thank you for being here. Load, whatever. Yes, that's where Archer Collins. Go north. You can see a cave entrance. Oh, gosh. Archer Collin also has a good point. I remember the cassette tapes, wait 10 minutes and then find out it didn't load and you have to turn the top over. Yeah, back in the day, we had to wait on everything. It wasn't just something that would just come out.
The Commodore 64 games, well, depending on the size of the game, because they did get bigger. You would have to, on average, you'd wait 3 to 5 minutes for a normal game to load. But some games like the Winter Olympics games, Summer Olympics stuff, they took longer because you had to load each competition, because each competition is basically a new game, right?
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Oh,
Yeah.
just a second. I got to kill a cat.
Well, please do.
Yeah, I loved those the Winter Olympics game was my favorite because you could do the ice skating and the ski jump.
Yeah. Which is kind of it's kind of sad though, because Olympics games have been gone for almost 20 years. There's almost nothing. It's you only get a baseball, basketball, American football, and FIFA. That's pretty much what it is. But back in the days, you had like all kinds of sports games. I mean, I had one called Caveman Olympics, which
Huh.
is Neanderthal Olympics. One of the competitions was you had to throw your wife the furthest.
Oh my
And there was another one where you had to run across a field uh, while being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. And you would play against a friend with that one, so you can actually trip the friend and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and you could climb the tree and make your friend fall down. Yeah,
That's wild. You probably wouldn't be able to get away with that nowadays. It would be considered what, insensitive to Neanderthals.
yeah, probably.
Yeah, they weren't such a sissy. Yeah, and when games got bigger, you had to section the game. Oops, I lost it. A section to load sections of the game as you progressed. Yeah.
Yeah, the last Ninja games in particular, really, which was the first last Ninja game was the first game that had enough music tracks to fill a CD. It had 12 tracks, while other games usually only had two.
Hmm.
So trivia was also the highest selling Commodore 64 game, which is quite a big deal because the Commodore 64 was actually in sale for over 10 years.
Dang, yeah. Well, I just remember Commodore 64 just being king until Nintendo happened.
Yeah, Nintendo was way more practical, and it was cheaper, but the games were more expensive on the Nintendo, so they kind of
Yeah,
earned
they had
back
to,
the.
yeah, they had their issues there. Well, I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but I do. The summer of Super Mario Brother and Mario Brother 2, like when the game came out, and it came out, and at school was out for the summer rather, and that's all we did the whole summer was try to beat that stupid game. and
Yeah,
it,
and you couldn't save the game on the Nintendo because there was no hard drive.
Precisely. So you would make the progress, and then if someone wanted to watch something else on television, or you had to start all over again.
Yep.
Yeah. No, but we had a mad time with it because it was me, my brother, my sister, my mother, and my grandfather were all trying to do it for Mario Brother 2, and I did it first, and everyone hated me.
Uh,
And
a friend of mine's mom was insane on Super Mario. She had mad skills, especially on the third one.
hmm. Oh yeah, that one was crazy. I never beat the third one. I think I kind of gave up. Um, uh, okay, and before I tell you what I've got here, hello, Nick Earl. Thank you for being here. I love playing Farming Simulator 22. Hmm. Well, there you are. Timon also own MSX with games and cassette tapes like Contra. You used a cassette player with a spin counter, and you have to match the play button tape player with the game load command in the MSX. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Archer, my first computer was a ZX Spectrum. The best peripheral was a keyboard that the computer fitted inside. Dang. Back in the day. Oh, this is cool. Gravy D says my 7 and 9-year-old nephews are playing the original Zelda. That's badass.
Yeah, that's on the Nintendo, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have one of those. My mom and dad got one of those NESS computer things where modern and it has all the Nintendo games. I don't. Is that what they're doing? At Christmas time, we had a blast because that was all we had to play because that's all they have. So we were playing Paperboy and all those others.
I tested Paperboy the other day.
Ah, and that was one of the one that worked, if I recall correctly.
Yes, it worked. I got 200 yards into the game before I died or had died 3 times.
Yes.
So, yay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It says, yes, they're playing it on the Switch NES channel. Okay. Yeah. Well, what we have here on the picture, this was the game I had. This was my first, I guess, console. It was called Odyssey, and it had that button there, and you'd put that thing in, and the joystick. That's what we played when I was a little girl. It was by Magnavox. There was a baseball game we liked to play. There was just a lot of little ones. There was a bowling one, but it just none of it took off the way the others did, and it died out. But this was me from ages 7 to 10 before the Commodore 64 took over.
The Commodore 64 had a big advantage because you could copy the games. All you needed was empty cassette tapes.
Yeah.
And the know-how.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, these were good times. Now, the thumbnail that I have is your favorite game of all time, which you talked me into playing and buying, and that is none other than the Monkey Island. Do you want to still tell us a little bit about Monkey Island?
A point-and-click adventure game. One of the best, in my opinion. Well, it was called Lucasfilm Games back then. And then it became LucasArts, and now they've gone back to Lucasfilm again. I don't know why Disney did that. They actually closed LucasArts because, to be honest, it was not doing well. But yeah, pirate game. You solve puzzles by using inventory and what have you to advance the story. Well, you played it.
Yes, I have played it, and I loved it. I'm getting this thing up here for you, and what I like is that, and the Day of the Tentacle, the other Lucasfilm one, is everything had a consequence. Like one thing led to another, which led to another, and then led to something else. Here we go. And if you get it wrong,
no, you need to look at The Secret of Monkey Island VGA. That there's the remake.
Oh, uh-oh.
Yeah, important. We need to be accurate at Miss Martin Muses.
Well, I'm accurate to the one I bought. Shoot, I'm in trouble.
That's a remake done by another company.
Okay. Well, I have been soundly rebuked. But yay, look at Chrisanne. She loves Monkey Island.
Everyone loves it. It's and they did quite a few games in the same style. They got a bit more advanced with each title, but the first one was Maniac Mansion, where you actually can you pick between you pick a squad of 3 teenagers, and each of them have their own abilities, and then you play it like Monkey Island. So you have replay value, because you can do different combinations.
Well,
yes, Archer Collins, there is a new one, but it looks like shit, to be honest. The art style is ridiculous.
Okay. Yeah, Gravy D misses. Yeah, Maniac Mansion looks like this is all good memories for everyone but me. I mean, I'm late to the game. I'm getting there. Oh, and Chrisanne. Oh, for sorry about that. Chrisanne says, to be fair, you can hit the button on the remake and it'll go back to the original textures, music, and
Yeah,
playstyles. You are
yeah,
correct.
you are correct, but it still looks way more pixelated than the original for some reason.
Okay. Well, I'm about to make this right, Steeg, so you don't have to rebuke me anymore. And actually, I found a really cool one. That if you have played Monkey Island, you know exactly what's going on. And let me see. The first time I played Monkey Island, I hate my life because it had a bug or something happened. Or like they said, oh, yeah, if you accidentally do this, they won't let you do that. And then it'll fuck up the whole game. And I had to start like back from practically the beginning. And that was one of the times where I did almost cry like a big baby. Actually, I might have cried. I definitely cried over Skyrim. Uh, but yeah, that one hurt and that hurt bad. All right, I'm about ready to redeem myself. Here you go. Here you go. And look at that scene. Oops, is it there it goes.
Yep. See? Way better.
Mm,
This one has
yeah,
a heart
sound.
and soul.
So this is how little Steeg used to play.
Yep.
My goodness. Make a ticker here. Are they going to let me? Yeah. And oh, you know all about this. Oh, yeah. Christine says classic insult. Mm-hmm.
And the insults in the first Monkey Island game are written by Orson Scott Card, the author of Ender's Game.
Yeah. So the reason why they're so awesome is they were.
Yeah, they actually had a best-selling author write the insults.
Yeah. How can anybody? You can't beat that, or rather, you know this, Steeg. Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, lots of fun, and not as pervy as people think, because that was kind of the sales pitch, you know, that yeah, this is a game your parents shouldn't catch you playing, right?
Yeah.
But it's mostly just puns and innuendo.
Yeah. But
There's no nudity in them.
but back then that was that was the naughty.
Yeah, and they capitalized on it being a bit racy, but it's if you watch a movie like American Pie, that's 100 times more, you know, racy than Leisure Suit Larry actually was. However,
Oh,
they did a couple of I guess spin-off games for the consoles that featured Larry's nephew. Uh, those were kind of lewd and all that because it was basically just take pictures of the girls while they were in the shower and crap.
mm-hmm.
And but the old Larry games were not like that at all.
Well, there you go. Yeah, he was a bit slimy. Um, Archer Collins says, looking back, I think the early games had to have great gameplay puzzles because they couldn't rely on modern style graphics.
Yeah, the old Sierra games, which was the competitor to Lucas Arts. They made King's Quest, Space Quest, Police Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, Quest for Glory. Um, you could die in those very easily. Um, and they did that because they felt since the games were actually kind of short, if you knew what to do,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't get your money's worth. So they added all kinds of
Oh,
ways to croak in it.
well, there's definitely logic to that. And speaking of King's Quest, that's what Gravy D said. First PC I owned came up with that. And poor Meteor Advocate, his dad wouldn't let him load a game because he said the "it's gonna break it" excuse.
The King's Quest 4 is the first game with a day and night cycle,
Hmm.
and it was done by Roberta Williams, female developer that all the game journalists keep forgetting about.
Mm.
She was so good at her job that they put her name on the game box. It said a Roberta Williams game as a stamp of quality.
Mm.
So
So, so you mean
yeah,
that they're actual women designers? How dare they?
yeah, and she was awesome.
Mhm. Yeah, I went to. Yeah, as we're doing this, yeah, I remember says Gravy D, you could get stuck in an area with an item you needed to without. You
Oh
could get stuck in an area. Sorry, go ahead, Seek. Yeah.
yeah, and if you didn't pick up that item early, you couldn't get it again sometimes. So
Hmm.
you had to start over again.
Yeah.
So
No hand holding.
the Sierra games were pretty hardcore, but I always thought it added to it because as they intended, it made the games last longer. And back then you didn't even have the internet to help you out, so you had to get help from friends who played the same game or simply tough it out. And you definitely got a sense of achievement when you actually if you actually beat one of them, because the early ones you even had to type. There was no point and click icons. It was the arrow keys and typing.
Mm. Oh, there you are. And Graves says, I believe a woman ported the Doom port for the Atari Jaguar by herself, and it's a great port.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, there was a lot of Sierra in particular had a lot of female developers. They had Jane Jensen, who was also a terrific writer. They had Laurie Cole and Chrissy Marks, Roberta Williams. It was like, yeah, but they uh, they never get recognized by the SJW game journalists because they haven't even heard of them.
Yeah. Or it ruins their narrative, so they just pretend it doesn't exist.
Yep.
La 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 la. Pulled in your ears. Archer Collin asks, Steve, did you ever play the original Bard's Tale games?
Yes, I did. I sucked at it. Technically, that one, if you want, yeah, that one's also made by a female retroactively because the developer is now trans. Was a
Ah,
male back in the day, but is a female now. So, according to the criteria, the game journalists should point that out too.
that is fair.
Because if that person claims he was born as a woman, then he was a woman when he made the game, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. You are correct. Chrysanth, this brings up a point about Monkey Island, a bit of trivia there, but I'm going to read Chrysanth's comment. You did have the phone lines, though, for hints. Never used it, though. My parents would have killed me. There's a story about those phone
This,
hints.
this is true, but not if you're in Norway.
Oh,
So,
wait.
oh, trust me, I wanted to call that number when I was stuck, but yeah,
So, so dang it, how insensitive they were to poor boys in Norway. They couldn't get it done.
yeah.
But wasn't it true that something with the first Monkey Island went wrong, so they made a joke about it in the second Monkey Island?
Oh, basically what they did that in the forest, in chapter one, there is a stump, and if you look into the stump, right, it says they did a joke. It says insert disc 6, disc 24, disc 37, and so on. And then naturally, it doesn't work, and because you don't have that many discs, so it, it was a joke that backfired on them because people thought there was something wrong with the game. They didn't get the joke, so they kept calling Lucasfilm over and over and over again. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
but
great. And
but
and
in Monkey Island 3, if you're when you're in a crypt, there's like a hole in the wall,
mhm.
and if you look through it, Guybrush will stick his head into the hole, and he'll be looking up from that stump in Monkey Island 1. So yeah,
I love those little in-game jokes that come from real pain and real anxiety. Uh, Archer Clown says where you could only save back at the Adventures Guild.
yeah,
Adventures?
that's Bard's Tale. They have actually been remastered. Yeah, you can get them on the Xbox now,
Hmm.
and they've made a fourth game now as well, which is new. But yeah, the original one, you can get it with freshed up graphics and music and all that stuff now. It's
Oh.
hardcore though. You're gonna die in it.
Which means I shouldn't play it because I don't do well in those scenarios. Now, I hope I know what I'm talking about here when I got this picture. Am I correct, Steek?
That looks like
This
an
is
Ultima game.
it is an Ultimate game. Thank God I got it right because
It's one of
um
the early ones, maybe Ultima 1.
it is Ultima 1. And I wanted to talk about Ultima because I've never played the game, but Richard Garriott came up with it. If I'm correct, did he even come up from the beginning one?
Yeah,
Okay. And Richard Garriott, I just found out because Steve told me about a book he has. So I listened to it on Audible as one of my challenge books, and it was so fascinating because not only did he make games like Ultima and write them, he also is an explorer. He's been to the North Pole, he's been to the Titanic, and he's been to outer space.
yeah. He pretty much started the computer role playing game genre, and he started the first games he made were D&D modules on an old teletype when he was 16, and then he made a game called Akalabeth, which you'll recognize the title is
Yep.
stolen from Silmarillion.
I was about to say, wait a second.
Yeah, which is basically just kill your way through. I think it's 9 levels of a dungeon. It's very basic, but keep in mind one guy did it,
Yep.
and then so a Calabeth is basically Ultima Zero, um, and then he was basically just trying to see what worked or not in Ultima 1, 2, and 3. You know, because it was he was learning as he was making games, and there wasn't many games like that to compare it to. So you had to teach yourself,
Hmm.
you know. But
Yeah.
after 4, it really becomes fantastic because Ultima 4 doesn't have a villain. You're basically trying. Your goal is to become, an avatar of uh, a belief system called the virtues, and you need to get max points in all of them to become a shining example of a good person in the world. So
Nice.
it's still hailed today as extremely unique, and it has a lot of stuff that we take for granted. I think the fifth game is the first game ever where the NPCs have their own schedules. So, if you go to the blacksmith, right?
Uh-huh.
During the day, he's there. If you go there at night, the store is closed. He's not there. He's at home or at the tavern. And that's a big deal to add. And this was like in 87. Sixth one has the first game where you can actually play as a gay guy or a gay woman.
You mean that didn't happen for the first time in 2016?
Yep.
Imagine that. Well, speaking of which, with those kind of games, oh my gosh, this almost went right outside my head. I don't want to lose it. Oh, I'm sorry, brother. This is what I wanted to talk about with Richard Garriott. Because one of the things that really stuck with me, and he opened his book, was he almost got stuck down in Titanic.
Literally almost got killed by the wreck of the Titanic.
I know. And even he was saying, like, how awful would that be? Oh, my. I mean, it's horrible. Yeah, and they didn't know. Well, basically, what was going to happen was their engine. Well, they had a collision with the Titanic, didn't they? That was
they drove a mini sub underneath the keel of it, and the top of it kind of got stuck in a bit of the keel, and it whipped up dust,
Uh-huh.
So they had zero visibility, and since they were under the wreckage, the people on the surface couldn't find them, because if they scanned for them with sonar or whatever, they wouldn't see them because they were under the Titanic. They would just pick up the Titanic. So they basically had to wiggle free.
Yeah, and what they weren't sure of, because of the silt or something that came up, they didn't know if it had clogged up their engines, because they had like turn off the engines or something, and if they couldn't get the engines going, it wouldn't even matter if they knew where they were, because they couldn't send people down to rescue them.
Yeah.
And the only thing that would have been left is they would have just, well, not drowned, they would have just run out of oxygen and died.
Or they would run out of power and freeze to death.
Oh gosh, the whole idea. Yeah, so if you ever want to read his book, that first chapter is harrowing, and well done that they decided to open it up with that, because oh my gosh, what a nightmare. Yeah, and then he also made these games.
Yeah, and he also made something called, well, he didn't, but he was involved with it. It was a spin-off of the Ultima games called Ultima Underworld. Also a highly regarded game today because of the innovations it brought. But the developers of Wolfenstein 3D, which is the grandfather of the first-person shooter games, watched a demo or something of Ultima Underworld, and that inspired them to make the Wolfenstein games. So it actually spawned the first-person shooter genre. So that's on Garriott as well. He also did the first successful multiplayer online game.
Yes. Was that an Ultima thing, or was that something else?
Yeah, it was Ultima Online.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, and in his book, he talked about there were some bugs, or things were really frustrating, and the players didn't think that they were getting solved, so they staged a rebellion. So they all got together and stormed into a castle, thousands and thousands of these online beta players, and they took their clothes off and barfed.
Yeah, and they also killed Richard Garriott's character, which wasn't supposed to be possible. And there's a video where they're trying to figure out, because they've gone through all the damage numbers
Mm-hmm.
to figure out who actually struck the killing blow. And it was a character named Rains.
Oh,
And Richard Garriott has sworn revenge on Rains ever since.
awesome. Yeah, and that was not just a technological shift; it was also a sociological shift, because he said that's the first time like an online gaming community, and he said, and it was like community organizing, like they like when they did their protests and things, that they were getting together and they were scheming, that they were organized. I mean, it was like as organized as if they were like overthrowing a government, and the fact that it was
Yeah, they,
people
they
from,
they broke the economy in the game too.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah. And it was like the idea that people from all over the world were conspiring together to do that. It it it's great. I just was fascinated by those aspects of it, which now we take for granted. Um, okay, I'm not sure. Okay, Archer Collins says the 2004 Bard's Tale was a different game. Haven't played BT4 yet. Must do so. Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar.
Oh, the 2004 one is a humorous adventure action game. Yeah, you even have to play music in it.
Hmm.
So you play as a scoundrelish bard. It's actually very good, in my opinion. I liked it.
Well, there you are.
It's one of those underrated gems.
Yeah. Well, if we were to talk about a game that also changed the world, Tetris. That was huge. And I remember when it came onto the scene, I think it was 1989. I recall being in high school, and it was addicting and everyone was playing it, and I think even recently there a murder associated with the game? I don't know if
That
you
would
know
be
anything.
ironic. You kill someone over Tetris and then end up in a cell block.
Yeah. But I mean, I remember, because of course that was back in the day. We did not have texting, we didn't have cell phones, and me and my friends were at the cinema, and my dad was supposed to pick us up after the movie. And we were like, where is he? And of course, he can't call. There wasn't a thing phone. And so after finally about 20 minutes, he just zooms up. I am so sorry, so sorry. He was caught up in a Tetris game with my mother. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Well,
it's like
Tetris is brilliant in its simplicity. It really is. And a guy in Russia made. I think actually that they did a movie about him recently.
yeah, it's called the Tetris Murders.
Oh, really? I thought it was just Tetris, but
Well,
yeah.
it says here a look at the unsolved murders of Vladimir Potov, who was involved in the development of the puzzle-based video game Tetris. Oh, and his wife and their young son.
Yeah, gaming was toxic even back then.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The Tetris was made, the Road Warrior, hello. Or sorry, the word Wardlier. I think Tetris was made in Soviet Union in the mid 80s, if I recall. It's just called Tetris. Yeah, the Tetris movie is good. Okay, then maybe I'm thinking of a different movie. I stand completely corrected. Mea culpa. And my grandfather would play it, and I have a gaming family, and even my grandmother was a big old nerd. When she sadly passed away untimely. let me see. Tetris movie. Okay, it's oh, it's new. Oh, I stand corrected. I stand rebuked, and I need to punish myself.
Well,
Hank,
I wasn't sure, so you know.
yeah. Hank Rogers discovered Tetris in 1988 and then risked everything by traveling to the Soviet Union, where he joins forces with inventor Alexei Pavlova to bring the new game to the masses. Well, I might have to watch that. And they're saying, is a Tetris movie a true story? It says Tetris is based on Rogers' real life licensing of the video game and the lasting friendships. Okay, so I guess it is. Gravy D says, I have the OG Game Boy CIB with Tetris.
Oh, that's probably worth a bet. A lot of those old handheld stuff, they can sell for a lot of money.
Oh, well, there you are. You heard it here first. Check it out on eBay. Every man for himself.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Mario, which was kind of the cousin of Tetris, was that made by the same people?
I don't know. Probably not.
No. But it was the same.
They probably took inspiration from it.
Mm-hmm. And made it different enough that they couldn't sue or anything like that. Yeah. I remember that one. That was big. And one of my favorite parts about the Tetris game was when you would get to, would you win or whatever, they'd all come out and they would do Russian dancing. I thought that was so awesome. And the music, yeah. The movie is on Apple TV. Oh, those bastards. Okay, Dr. Mario is a fun one. Yes, indeed it is.
If you look up a channel called Gaming HD on YouTube, it's by a Romanian guy. He did a series of it's basically a documentary where he does one episode per year. There has been video games, and he starts off in the 1960s because that's when the first game happened. It happened by accident. It was basically you could move a couple of dots or something on a computer, but and he also talks about the events in the world during that year, so you can also see how it affected the games for the next few years. Because after 9/11, 2001, you got a lot of first person shooters, especially anti-terror shooters. And quite often after there had been a disaster, like an earthquake somewhere, you would get city builder games. A lot of those.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I really like that channel.
Yeah, it's awesome. And he talks about, what was developed in terms of technology during those years, and then which game represents the year the best. Not necessarily the best game, just the best representation. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
The guy is criminally undersubbed.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I might look him up, or if anyone knows him in the chat, if one of my mods maybe could put the link in there. Well, you know the name. You could put it in. It says, Meteor Advocate Timon says, first game, it was created using an oscilloscope.
Oscilloscope?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got to go to the foreigner to pronounce English for me. Okay. Sounds good. Well, in the sociology history kind of person in me, anthropologist, I just love that channel because it's just a new way of looking at a year by year. GameSack is one of my favorite retro channels. Okay, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. Oh, silly scope.
There's so many great retro gaming channels that actually delve into the history of the games as well. You know, the Romanian guy had made a Monkey Island documentary, and he released it a day after someone had done a superb documentary of that one. And he was like, well, crap. These other guys made a better one. So he said, you know, if you want to watch the best documentary about Monkey Island, watch theirs. But if you want to watch mine too, that would be good. So
Yeah.
that was kind of fun.
Kind of fun, and props to his humility and recognition of that.
Yeah.
And yes, thank
Well,
you. Everyone's telling me how to pronounce it. We've got. Thank you, everyone. I do appreciate that, so I don't make it easy to myself next time that happens.
no,
So,
I pronounced it wrong too.
oh, oh, good. We both suck.
Yeah. We're shit
Yeah.
people.
Yes, we must be punished. Um. Oh yeah, I forgot the virus thing, and yeah. So Super Mario Brothers, that was, rather Doctor Mario was one that I played a lot, and for reasons it's been a little bit overrated. But Mario Kart really is a fun game to play. Is it the gaming history? Gaming history. No, I didn't. That was a whistling sound. That was weird. Okay. Um. Yeah. So we have that. We have Doctor Mario. And then I kind of disappeared off the face of the earth as far as gaming goes. I think I just got busy, and Call of Duty. Now, Call of Duty, was that one of those post 9/11 things?
Um, well, kind of, because they did the Modern Warfare once, but because before that it was World War II games. So,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. And Timon's helping me. An oscilloscope helps you see how the voltage of a certain point in a circuit behaves through time. Thank you. Archer says, then again, it's possible the U.S. English pronounces it differently from British English, to be fair. Different emphasis. True. But you guys are the ones that properly speak English, so you know better than I do. We butcher English. Now, the thing that shall not be named, and we won't go too much into it because of reasons, there were some really solid Star Wars games in the 1990s, the X-Wing games. I do recall having a lot of fun with those. And
Yeah.
KOTOR.
Yeah. They were not. KOTOR wasn't made by Lucasfilm though. It was made by BioWare. They basically leased Star Wars, but and those are role playing games. They actually used a simplified version of the 3.5 edition D&D rules.
Oh, now that's news to me. All the way down.
Well, get a PC and play them.
Yeah. Well, you learn something new every day. Didn't say it in
The
Portuguese. Sorry.
the developers of the second KOTOR game didn't get to finish the game because this was actually Lucasfilm that pushed them to release it for Christmas when it wasn't done. So the game has a lot of dead ends. But about a decade ago, the old developers released a mod for it that basically completes the game. You you get an extra planet in it that you can visit, and all the storylines are fixed up and no dead ends. And they did that in their spare time, so that's a pride thing, isn't it? However, that mod you can only get for the PC because it was released as an Xbox game, not an Xbox 360 game like the original Xbox, and you couldn't mod anything on it. So if you're playing it on if you're playing it on the console, you'll never get the full version of KOTOR 2.
Well, that sucks. But that's
Yeah.
good to know. Um, yeah, Media Ratificate's teaching me Portuguese here. I'm too scared to try to pronounce Portuguese. It's a scolio copio. I just butchered it, I'm sure. Yeah. That's interesting to know about KOTOR. And then did you played the X-Wing games, didn't you?
Oh, hell yes. Want to hear a story?
I do want to hear a story.
Well, I guess I was like 13 or 14 or something. Got up early on Saturday morning to play X-Wing. Had a joystick, proper one. You kind of need that for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents went to to go shopping. It was like a big deal on Saturdays. They were gone for hours. So and it was summer. So I sat down on the couch in front of the PC, played X-Wing, and I was like, shit, I need immersion, you know? So I put on
Yeah.
a bicycle helmet and swimming goggles. And I had like an old gas mask piece that I had found at a junkyard. So I taped that to the side of the helmet. So I was sitting there playing, all of a sudden my mom was in the doorway. They had come home. Come home. I hadn't noticed. So I was sitting there in my boxers, wearing a bicycle helmet, swimming goggles, and half a gas mask taped, dangling from the helmet. And I shit you not, ever since that day, she never approved of any kind of gaming I did.
Oh no.
Yeah, I probably looked retarded.
Oh, you were doing immersion.
If you see
Oh
something
gosh.
like that, is immersion the first thing you think about? If you're seeing that, with no context.
Well, no. Well,
I'll uh,
because of sorry.
I'll tell you another fun story.
Okay.
On the Commodore 64 game, no, sorry, Commodore 64, there was a game called Piccolo Mouse, which
Uh-oh.
was what?
Go ahead. I will
Anyway,
permit it.
there was a game
I'll,
called Piccolo Mouse. It was barely a game. It was a monkey masturbating, and to make his hand go up and down, you had to wiggle the joystick back and forth from side to side. Which is, if you think about it, it's kind of brilliant, isn't it?
like
However,
I said, I
uh,
knew it was going to be bad.
yeah, a friend of mine had gotten that game, and I went to visit him one summer early in the morning. Rang the doorbell. It didn't open. Rang again. His mom opens the door and says, "Yeah, he's in the downstairs living room playing video games." Okay, so she opens the door to let him know I'm there. He's sitting cross-legged in front of the TV, right? And
Yeah.
he has his joystick between his legs or something, but we don't see it, right? Because we see it from an angle. And we see his hand working fiercely between his legs, right? While
No.
staring at a masturbating monkey on the TV. His mom went pale, like
Oh,
really pale. And my friend turns around and she sees he's holding a joystick,
yeah.
right? And not something else. And I've never seen a woman look that relieved before.
So you're saying he literally was playing with himself?
Well, no, the joystick.
Well, yeah, the
It
joystick,
was,
but he was playing the game with himself. I guess. Okay, that was
yeah,
bad.
it was true story. So, while being a really screwed up game, it was kind of brilliant in its
Yeah.
simplicity.
Yeah, it's like a mom was never so happy the kid was actually just playing a video game.
Yeah, she was still skeptical about the damn game though because it was not a good look. And for those in the chat, just Google Piccolo Mouse on and Commodore 64. You'll see what it is.
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, and thank you, Timon. I do appreciate that. You guys aren't as judgmental as others.
Oh, I'm so gonna have that in that 80s D&D game.
Oh, screw you, Steeg.
I'm gonna have because Mara's playing a gamer in that one. I'm gonna have her like have to play a Piccolo Mouse contest in the game. Sure as fuck I'm gonna do that.
Poor Mara. He's being mean to Mara. Uh,
Yeah, he was
yeah, this.
holding his joystick, but it looked like he was holding something else from that
I
angle.
know. Yeah. Well, he's like quote unquote like he's holding the
Yeah, and
joystick. Well, that'll
his
be a new
hand went
euphemism.
his hand went back and forth too really fast because you're supposed to do that, right? In the
Yes.
game. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, Gravy D. I don't think I'm giving away any state secrets that we are planning on just having a dedicated story time. I believe on my channel for our D&D stories, our Conan D20, our real D&D, and this new game. It's just a matter of timing because of the scheduling,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
we will.
we're gonna do like Mora's gonna be on, I think. There's gonna be
But
me,
yeah, that's
Teresa,
what
and
I'm saying.
Mora, and we're gonna be talking about how D&D works as well, and
Hmm.
what goes into it, and how you play, and take questions maybe from the
Yeah.
chat. And I'm sure Mora has stories to tell and accusations to throw at me. I guess you've noticed that she blames me for everything. I can never do anything right. She wanted midgets. I gave her midgets. Then she complained and killed them.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry, I thought I had said about Mara. Yeah, because and that's the thing is that um, we're not doing it unless we can get her on. Um, but yeah, we have and we've had quite a cast of characters that have played with us over the years, and some stories and a lot of creativity. It's been going for 3 years, and this '80s game is proving to be epic. We're putting it to rather Stieg is putting together with some input from us in that it also has Easter eggs from our D&D game and our Conan game because there's been certain tropes or certain in-jokes that turned into a thing. And sometimes it
Basically,
was
whatever pissed Mara off is going to transfer over to the next one on pure spite.
that too. But not just Mara. I mean, you Steek didn't know what a day dress was. And it's become an ongoing joke. He had an NPC at a dress store, and
Well, think about this though. They go into a store that sells women's clothing. I don't know shit about women's clothing. And then they want me to tell them what kind of dresses they have there. And I'm like, a red one? You know?
and we started laughing at him, and then you're like, I told you a dress. We're like, but what? It's like, but there's all kinds of dresses because what I was wanting to get was a day dress.
Yeah, but
So
seriously, for all the guys in the chat, can you tell a difference between a day dress and a regular dress? Because I sure
well,
as hell
okay,
can't.
yeah. And ever since then, I have been spamming him with every time I find things of day dresses. She always complains, says Gravy D. Good one, Gigawatt 1.21. Is that why she is jaded?
Yes.
Okay, yes. And Gigawatt
See,
does not know what. Okay.
yeah, I didn't know either. I've been mocked for it for 6 months.
Yeah. And I don't think this is giving away a spoiler, but since it's modern day, there's of course going to be a church, and so Stieg named one of the Catholic churches Saint Teresa. So that was nice. No, Colin. Unfortunately, or fortunately, this is we don't live stream these because first of all we're pretty effed up anyways, and maybe there's some things that we would if we'd be self conscious, but also is it called metagaming? Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Is it
metagaming
metagaming that you're talking
when
about?
you
Yeah.
take inputs and do stuff your character wouldn't know, you know. But
Yeah.
I've been on streamed D&D games before, and here's the thing: it can ruin the game because super chats and replying to the chat and all that stuff interrupts the flow of the game, right? Because all of a sudden the host has to say thank you for the super chat, and the poor DM loses track of whatever was going on. And another thing is the chat will want to contribute with advice and reminders, like, hey, remember you have that spell, use that one, blah blah blah. So it will remove the element of fuck ups from the players as well, because they will basically have help from the 20 people watching at any time,
Yeah.
you know.
And yeah. And not to say that that there's anything wrong with that, because I think that
No,
there is a place for that kind of gaming and people have a loads of fun with it. It's just something that we chose not to do.
yeah, it's the interaction certainly would be fun, but like I mentioned those examples as well. So it would also take away uh, a bit as well. And since if it was streamed on YouTube or something, you'd have to keep it kind of PG-13 as well, which Mora's playing, right? Yeah,
Well, let's be fair to Mara though.
PG-13 is out the window.
Well, hey, I am guilty of that too. I mean, all of us are. You know, we've had what Nina Infinity. She was. There's been some really interesting things. Yeah. So let's not. I'm defending Mara. Mara's not the only one, right?
No, no,
Um.
no, definitely not.
Yeah. Gigawatt says seems like you would have a designated person interact. Oh, I'm sure there could and there would be. It's just something that we chose not to. That's just all there is to it. And that's why we want to do this stream, because we know people are interested, and especially Mara is she tells the story so much better than I do, but to reminisce, and just times like when Nina accidentally she we just wanted to beat up someone, and she just ended up doing this spell that basically tore him to shreds. I mean, it was like getting the equivalent of being hit by 60 bullets. And then what was it I did? I was like, okay, we killed this guy, but I want to get the tea he has because the guy had tea. Just stupid crap like that we do. That's fun that we can talk about. Um, yeah. Well, Archer called. Yeah, I see what you're saying. He said, I've seen it, watched a few stream games actually do one myself, so I take your point. Maybe the answer is record and stream. Yeah, there's possibilities, but also there's the privacy thing. Me, I will say this, that there are some things that maybe I might do or say that I would prefer not to be out there. I try to be a good girl, but when we play, it's fun to just let your hair down and let it go. And
I'll tell you one thing.
yeah,
The heathen Viking from Norway is the one that cusses by far the least.
I know. And the Catholic girl is the one who cusses the most.
By
That's
far.
more than Mara.
Oh yeah.
It's because of the dice. Yes. Oh dear. It's something else. But that's also why I want to do this stream too, because Steeg and Mara have far more experience than I do. I'm still a newbie. I've never played any of this until we did the D&D game. We started that one in 2020, and Steeg has a myriad of years of experience as a DM, and I think that people don't appreciate how hard it really is to be a DM.
Well, it's basically you're a calculator for much of the time, and you need to know the rules. But I think if you learn how they work and why this and this works this and this way, uh, you, most of your job is done because you can just use reasoning. You don't have to memorize anything if you figure out the system. But I always let common sense trump the rules, you know,
Yeah.
because the rules are really just guidelines, you know. But so I'm not a rules lawyer, you know. But
Yeah.
and the other thing is you have to keep track of who said what to who. So sometimes, if it's like an investigative uh, quest or something like that.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, I also used to work as a role playing game developer,
mhm,
lore writer, world builder thing. So that helps as well because I can. It doesn't take me that long to create, a village that they're gonna visit and try and make it a little bit unique from the other village, because you don't want two villages looking the same.
yeah. But it's just very much like, to use the analogy with music, because Steek threw me a piece of music today, and I was like, just got out my keyboard and was able to play it right away. And it's like, no, that didn't happen overnight. That happened because I've been doing it since I was 4. It's something. It's the skill you develop. So Steeg, because he has these, I'm going to talk about you in third person, has this background. It is easy. But if say we're someone like me, first of all, I would probably suck, and second of all, it's not something that you can just do. It's like, oh, I've just read a manual, I can do this. We're talking years of experience and years of a certain skill set. And it's not the same as being a writer or even a storyteller, though that all of that is a part about it of it. It's a very
Well,
unique thing.
some people who DM to tell a story they've written, which when you do that, you put the players in the passenger seat and they're just there to help you tell your story, right? Which means it's not about the players, is it? It's about the DM. And I always thought that's the wrong way to do it. I always try to put the players in the driver's seat. So I'll make quests and missions and whatever that are kind of open. So you'll get a starting point, but how you get to the end of it is entirely up to you, right?
Mhm.
And because at the end of the day, when you're playing D&D or any role playing game, the main character of the story is your character, right? And it's
Yeah.
exactly the same for Mora. When she's playing Conan with you guys are the sidekicks. She's the main character, you know? So
Mhm.
what I just try to do is just cater to that for all the players. So you get an equal amount of screen time, and you get to use your skills and all that. And uh, it's kind of like if you watch a football match, right? If you're watching a football match and you don't notice the referee's probably done a good job because you're not pissed at the referee.
Mhm.
You didn't notice him. Everything went flawless, right?
Yeah.
So basically, when you write D&D, you're writing plot points that can change based on what you guys do. You don't have to do it like that, but I do because I think it's probably more fun for the player
Yes.
if they
And
feel like
what
their actions have consequences for good or bad.
yeah. I like the way you point that out, and I think that perhaps it's not always appreciated that you have to have a high level of humility to be a DM. It's a little bit of a paradox because you have to kind of be confident and all that, but you also have the humility to step back. And I know that there are several times, Steve, where you've had something really cool ready to go, and we're all like, no, let's not go over there. Let's go over here. And we just
Oh
walk
yeah,
away.
yeah. There's been a couple of quests that you just couldn't use them because someone bought day dresses instead or whatever. But that's fine because I can always use that later and merge it with something else, or So I never try to force you know the players onto some rails that will lead them to all the quests I made or whatever, because that's railroading is bad,
Yeah.
because that again makes the players passengers.
Mm. Yeah.
So
And
that's how I do it, though. It's other people do it different ways, and it works for them. So I'm not saying it's my way or the highway. It's just how I do it.
mhm. Well, and sometimes you are a slave to the dice as much as we are because we had some characters that we now call something that in music is retardando, and the characters were not supposed to be that way, but every time Steve had to have the NPC do a response, he was like rolling ones
Yeah,
and so it turned out that these characters ended up being the dumbest recurring NPCs we had. Yeah.
yeah, and Mara thinks I do it on purpose to piss her off. It's
Mm-mm.
like,
No.
no.
Well, you can hear the dice rolling, and that's always what's really funny because sometimes we'll say something and we'll hear the dice and there'll be a hesitation and it'll be like
Well, the hesitation is me trying to come up with something that's dumb enough for that dice roll.
exactly. No, and we've started laughing. It's just awful. Yeah, and Road Wardier says, "I like Miss Martin's analogy of music. The DM is like the conductor, the players like the orchestra, but there is no sheet music, just an idea." True.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, yeah, not quite an
Well,
entirely. Oh, go ahead, T.
one thing though is eventually you'll start to know your players, how they think,
Mm-hmm.
which means you can have something happen, and I know Mara's going to pick up on that and do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like have someone do some kind of betrayal or a snarky comment at her character. She's going to react to that because she's vindictive as fuck. So
Well,
that's how you start a Mara quest. Have someone do something shitty to her.
yeah. Well, I'm vindictive. Some guy gave us food poisoning, and instead of Steve just thought I was gonna beat him up, and instead I did this elaborate murder
Oh,
torture plot of it.
I'll tell the chat what happened. This
Okay.
fat merchant guy had sold bad meat, and Teresa got sick from it, which
Mm-hmm.
is fine. It should have some kind of consequence for him. What they did though, they bought ninja outfits and snuck into his home while he was taking a bath in his pool, and they had drugs with them. And Mara pinned the guy in the pool, and Teresa took a fistful of drugs and forced it into his mouth and nose, hoping to kill him. Didn't kill him though, so they kind of drowned him while he was coked up. All because
It
he
was
sold them bad meat.
yeah, yeah. So
That's
these
not on me.
No, that was all us. And so you heard it here first. These are more stories you will get when we do the live stream, and we'll let you know. It's just a matter of timing. Yeah, and the analogy about the conductor, the only thing I'll say, and because I'm a snob and I am a conductor, is um, a, you're right, but a conductor is actually a dictator. So if I say to the violins, it's like, here, no, I want you to I want you to mark this bowing, and I want you to back off on the crescendo and all that. Like, they have to do what you tell them. It's a dictatorship. Maybe that's why I do so well at it. I like having that kind of power. But I also understand what you're saying, because it's the conductor's job to bring it all together for one big, magnificent piece of work. um Outfit shop, actually, yes, it is Road Warrior. Well,
Yes.
yeah, because we
Oh
can't have
yes. And they
that's why I
always
was saying
ask
play
for
with a
the
bunch.
fucking storekeeper's name, and I have to remember this. I think I'm up to 30, to 20 or 30 storekeeper names that I have to
Yeah, he's
remember.
right.
Because all of a sudden they want to know the guy's name and they think it's important. I'm like, no, it's clothes salesman number 6. You know,
Yeah,
and then what does he
yeah.
look like? Is he bangable? Well, that
Yeah,
was Nina.
yeah. Well, here's the thing: when you play with a bunch of girls, getting the right clothes is very important. Did he sell the bad meat on purpose? Actually, we still don't know if he did it on purpose. I didn't wait to find
So
out.
he basically
Archer,
just sold all the meat he had. It didn't check. That's the thing.
yeah. Archer Collins says, "Remind me never to piss Teresa." Damn right. You had her. Oh, ha ha ha, Derek. You had a real beef with that guy. Oh my. Okay. Now I have one more thing I want to bring up here, because this was a game that I did play. It wasn't mine. It was my brother's. But if you were hanging out in the 2000s and really into the Lord of the Rings and the games, there was this game, and you could. It was so much fun, because it was the first one I remember where you could play around in the world. It was realistic enough that it felt like you were playing in Middle Earth. You could visit it.
I played the first one, the Fellowship of the Ring.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
it had it came out when the movie came out, but it did follow the book more than the movie.
Hmm.
See, you had to sneak out of Hobbiton and avoid the ring raids, and Lobelia was there, and yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. But the clothes and the world was based on the movies, as you can see. Is this Return of the King? I think it might have been. Off the top of my head, actually, I don't know. Probably. It's been a while.
Well, and that's Gandalf the White.
So it's definitely the two terrors. It might be. Is that Rohan though? So it might. I don't remember
Yeah,
the details.
it looks like isn't it Helm's D because of bridge? No, it's Rohan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you see
Yeah.
the carvings and
Hmm.
yeah, it's probably some the orcs attack Rohan or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't so much into the actual fighting and all. I just was in the fact of playing.
There's a great one that's made for to play with one or two friends. It's called War in the North. It takes
Oh.
the story takes place parallel to the story in the books. So you have an elf lady who's a sorceress. You have a dwarf warrior, and a human ranger, and you meet up with. You actually get to Rivendell as the Fellowship is leaving. So your little group has to deal with the problems in the north because there was a war going on in the north as well.
Oh. Oh, you're right. Yeah. No. Yeah. That wasn't in the thing. Okay. I just saw this. I am so sorry, Archer. I think I missed that question. Have you read the Dream Park books?
No,
Okay, and he says the reason he asked was a bit about the designer complaining about putting a lot of work into something the party doesn't work. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's why you got.
I never mind that. You know, it's like I said, they're in the driver's seat. I pretty much supply options.
Mhm.
So if something doesn't get used, I'll just, uh, if possible, I'll rework it into something else later.
Mhm. Yeah, or just keep it in your notebook. It says Return of the King was 2-player. Okay. And then the Roared Warrior says, I remember the game. Don't you end up fighting the Eye of Sauron at the end? Hmm.
In this one, or
Could be.
War in the North, you do
I
not fight it in War in the North though.
no.
You're fighting an evil wizard-ish person in that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Oh,
these
and
tie in.
you can call in the eagles and
Yay!
have them attack groups of enemies. You pick up some feathers that you can spend on that. So
So you can do with the Eagles what Tolkien kind of says you're not supposed to do.
yeah,
Order them around. But it's a game. Um, and I like these immersive versus movie games. I haven't played it yet, but the Hogwarts Legacy game, again, it gives you a chance to play around in Hogwarts.
so you like open world games
Hmm.
like Skyrim and The Witcher, and
Yeah. Oh, and I love The Witcher because I get a similar reason. Though I need to get back to it. I've been a bad girl because it's so story based. But yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's like really you think
it's probably one of the best written stories I've seen in a video game because of the how the choices have effects on the story further down the road, and that always impressed me with Witcher 3. And having read the books now, it's the people who made the three Witcher games really, really honored the source material.
mm.
But
Unlike
the games are not canon. They are an optional continuation of the books, but definitely not canon.
you know,
But it could be your canon. You know,
hmm
read the books, and then the continuation is the games. It's up to you.
yeah, especially if you're not too crazy about the ending of the books. It's a good way to do that. And uh, people are forgiving, and I will say myself included. You will be forgiving of liberties if there is a general feeling of respect for the source material. For example, Peter Jackson. I
Oh,
can forgive him some really crap things he did in especially the two towers because overall the overall product is solid to the story and respectful and all that. You can forgive that.
yeah. Timon Flip says The Witcher doesn't have any happy ending. Yes, it does. In yeah, everyone survived in my game.
He must have made the choice you warned me about because that was
There's a
brutal.
few. If you don't help Siri out later on in the game and try to make her happy, she's gonna die at the end because she's gonna fail.
She's going to burn alive, isn't she?
No, that's Kira Metz.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
there we go. Shows you
Siri
how much
is
I know.
yeah.
I'm still a newbie on it, though I have all of the books on the way. I will be reading them. Unlike the TV show, yeah, Archer. I mean, what a bunch of twats. I mean, Geralt, Henry Cavill as Geralt was such good casting. He's such a good actor. Though I have been told he looks more like the video game than he is described in the books.
Yeah.
So, but
But here's the thing. apart from a couple of episodes where they did some of the short stories,
Mhm.
the show has nothing at all to do with the books.
Yeah. And which is
They're basically
ridiculous.
using the characters to tell their own stories.
Yeah. Which is, well, they lost Henry Cavill. Well done, you dumbasses. I mean, nothing against the actor taking over the role. He's going to do the best he can, but you're no Henry Cavill, even though I like you. I liked you in Hunger Games, but oh, the crones story. Oh, I know. Oh, yeah, that was a yeah, that was that. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was fucked up. But
Oh
it's
yeah,
true to
the Bloody Baron thing.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was something else.
Well,
Yikes.
the damage to the mom had been done before you start the mission anyway.
Mhm.
So if you get her sent off to an insane asylum for treatment, then that's probably the best ending.
Yeah. No, but I see I see what you're saying, and I'm a little bit past the crone stories. I don't know if I'm much further, but at the end of the day, my attitude towards spoilers are if something's been out as long as it has and I accidentally get spoiled, that's my own fault. Like if I'm around the internet, the only time I ever get kind of mad about spoilers is if I will ask, please don't give me spoilers. And then some dumbass goes, oh, you mean like this? It's like, okay, that's not nice. Archer Collin, then again, The Witcher's loss may well be Warhammer's 40,000's gain. I will say the keyword is may well. We don't know yet because fool me once, shame on you.
It's Amazon. Keep that in mind. They have a proper bitch who decides what goes into which shows. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's the
That
problem.
and even though Henry Cavill is a producer on it and stuff, even them, they don't have the the final call on that stuff. And he's one of many, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and the lady who is actually in charge of what Amazon produces, she's the one who greenlit the Rings of Power and the Wheel of Time, and
Yeah.
in she did those instead of doing uh, a Conan show,
Mm.
and I think it was an Elric of Melanie Bonet show by Michael Moorcock. She passed on those because they had too much masculinity.
Mm.
So
Their loss. Road Warriors making a good point. Bloodline shows what happens when they stop using. Oh gosh, yeah.
oh,
And of course,
they stopped using the source material in season one.
mm, true. From what I've been told, but yeah, I see what you're saying though. It was like just completely, and yeah, season 5 onwards of Game of Thrones. Yeah, season 5 was when Game of Thrones just went completely off a cliff
Yeah,
because they,
they basically they got rid of George Martin,
yeah,
and then they just did their own thing. Nothing in after season four has anything to do with the story, and then people blame George Martin for it. It was like he
yeah,
wasn't involved after season
yeah.
four.
Yep. But it's the height of hubris. They were like, "Oh, we're so successful, we can do it ourselves." It's like, yes, dumbasses, you were so successful because you weren't doing it yourselves.
Well,
In the
the thing is, they got away with it up until season eight because people just clapped like seals for the shock moments. Like, oh my god, they killed this character, and that's where the thinking stopped.
Mm.
The how and
Well,
why and who, that didn't matter. It was just, oh my god, the dragon ate him. This is the best show ever.
hey,
You know?
in a way, you're talking a little bit about me. I didn't know better. Well, I knew season 7. By the time season 7 came around, I knew something was really off. It was for season 8. Um, who did I shag? I shagged uh, um Jennifer or Yennefer. Sorry, I want to shag her because I want them to end up together. Yes,
You can
all she.
shag Kira Metz and get away with it too.
Yeah, I shagged her. Yes, I did shag her because you told me I could get
But
away with it.
don't shag Triss and Yennefer. Not a good idea.
Yeah.
Stick with one of them.
Okay. Thank you, Gravy. Yeah. Now we're all shagging here, but yes, and thank you for being here, Gravy D. Appreciate it. You're great. Always enjoy seeing you and seeing you around other channels and on Kickstarter. Archer says, hadn't they caught up with the books by then? So generally, no source
Nope,
material.
they
No,
had
no,
not.
that's not true. They had.
They
Oh,
had
go ahead, Steve.
season 4 ends where book 3 ends. So you still have book 4 and 5. Book 5 is probably half again as long as book 1. And they used some bits from book 4, but they basically skimmed through it in 4 episodes in season 5. And for book 5, they only used the Jon Snow stabbing scene. That's it, which didn't even make sense in the show. So they tossed aside about 2,000 pages that they just didn't use.
Yeah. So when they said, to
And
be fair, they said that, but they were lying.
yeah, they they had source material, and they completely ignored 3 or 4 storylines. I mean, if you look at season 2, you have like the Battle of the Five Kings, right? Sorry, the War of the Five Kings. Well, they forgot about the Greyjoys. So when they on the show declared, yeah, the war is over now, uh, the Greyjoys hadn't even participated because they forgot about them.
They kind of forgot.
Yeah, and in the books, Balon Greyjoy is the first one to die. No, no, it's not. It's Renly, but and then Balon Greyjoy.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. And Archer Collins says that he only didn't watch past the first 4 episodes. Well, you dodged a bullet. You dodged a bullet, good sir, because that was one hell of a letdown.
Yeah, the first 4 seasons are fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
oh,
Well,
the stuff in A Feast of Crows does matter, big time.
yeah.
There's just not a lot of action, but yes,
Well,
there's
and
there's in a Game of Thrones, there's like 2 books written between the lines.
yeah, and I think correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't part of it a little confusing because it's happening simultaneously?
Basically, book 4 is about half the characters, and then
Uh-huh.
book 5, the first 2/3 of book 5, is about the other half of the characters, and then you get all of them at the in the final third. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
so
And
it
it's
catches up.
yeah. My personal opinion as one who stopped after the second book because I decided to stop until he decided he was going to finish the daggone thing. I it's very hard in my humble opinion to judge the rest of the books because in the last 2 in the Winds of Winter and the Dream of Spring, that's where it's all going to come together. Because he not that he's a slow burn kind of a guy, but just all the puzzle pieces, uh, and that's why it will be such a failure on his part if he does not complete it.
Yeah,
Um,
and when people talk about the best fantasy writers out there, and a lot of people mention George Martin, and I'm like, yes, he's a fantastic writer, but he hasn't finished. So
mhm.
you can't really put him at the top of anything, because even if he does finish, right, he could still screw up the ending. A lot of
Yeah.
great writers have screwed up the ending. So he, by not having finished, he doesn't qualify, and
Mm, mm,
neither does Patrick Rothfuss, who has written 2 books. Book 2 was released before Game of Thrones Book 5. So he's actually spent more time than George Martin, and he doesn't even have a tenth of the characters.
Yeah.
So, and he hasn't done TV shows and written plays and video games either. He's just done nothing. He's hung out with Will Wheaton on
Ugh.
board game streams and shit.
Why did he have to say Will Wheaton? Yeah.
Yeah,
To answer,
but
to answer,
he gets a free pass though for some reason.
well, people don't know about him because they don't. I mean, I didn't know about him. I wouldn't know. People, it's people that are more maybe attached to the TV show. I'm looking here what World Warrior says. Think George will finish it? We're going to get another Sanderson takeover. In my humble opinion, he will not finish it, and I would like there to be a Sanderson situation, but I think that
He said there won't be.
he said there won't be that. So
Yeah.
that's where I just can't respect him. I'm like, listen, at least Robert Jordan. Okay, Robert Jordan was dying of a horrible blood cancer. I saw just a horrible thing, and his first thought was, "Oh my gosh, my fans, they need an ending to the story." George Martin is, ha 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 ha. If I die, it doesn't matter. No one's gonna get an ending, so he can fuck off.
I don't think he's lost interest. I just think he's fucking slow, and he tends to say yes to a lot of projects way too easily.
But he's not
I,
young.
I know, but I think he has zero impulse control.
Ugh.
And that's the problem. I think we're going to see book 6, but I'm worried about book 7.
Yeah. I think book 6 is reasonable. We have to wait a few generations before we get another Tolkien. Well, don't you? You're of the opinion about Robert Jordan is probably not. Yeah, that he's a worthy successor to Tolkien.
Yeah, I'd say. Here's the thing: if you say that a writer is better than Tolkien, you get shit on immediately because you're simply not supposed to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Tolkien's put on a pedestal, and I don't think Tolkien himself would approve.
No, he would not.
Because I think he would approve of a hell of a lot of fantasy writers. But Tolkien's praise for he has so much lore and blah blah blah, and I'm like, Robert Jordan and even George Martin actually has more, and so does a lot of other fantasy writers. So he is no longer unique in having a hell of a lot of lore. He's unique when it comes to having created 2 extra languages for his work, which is insane. Credit to him for that. But he was also a linguist. So we can't really blame Robert Jordan for not having created languages for his books.
Well, and not just that.
For the first thing, it wasn't needed. Secondly, not everyone is a linguist.
Yeah, like only Tolkien could have written what he wrote because that's who he was. And not just that, as George R. R. Martin always says with great admiration, he'll say, you can't compare us because he was also from a different era. He was a man who started off his life in the trenches of World War One.
Here's a question that I ask people though. If you remove the Lord of the Rings from his work, right? Ignore the Lord of the Rings. Is he still a 10 out of 10 writer? If you look at what you have left.
Yeah. His essays, I'm just saying I know from his nonfiction writing.
Yeah, but The Hobbit isn't a 10 out of 10 book. It's like an 8. Hobbit isn't a masterpiece. The Lord of the Rings is a masterpiece.
Yes, I would agree with you on that.
And yeah, I mean, Unfinished Tales, is that a 10 out of 10?
Well, no, that's not fair because the Unfinished Tales weren't ever really supposed to be.
No, but it's part of his. It was part of his work though, and even the Silmarillion, I don't think that's a 10 out of 10. The lore and work in it is amazing, but the execution is dry as fuck.
Yeah.
But So
Well,
it's kind of like whenever someone has to make a top 10 fantasy writer list, that they automatically have to put Tolkien there at the top, otherwise they get bashed, even though they might genuinely think that, Anne McCaffrey is a better writer, or Ursula Le Guin, Robert E. Howard. You know, it's
oh,
it's it's an appetite thing, isn't it? At the end of the day,
yeah. I have a quote here, and I don't know if I can find it. That from Tom Shippey, the Tolkien author of the century, about why Tolkien's so daggone important. I might need to have to paraphrase it, but ultimately, oh, here it is. Here it is. It says Tolkien did not invent heroic fantasy, but he showed what could be done with it, and he established a genre whose durability we cannot estimate.
yeah.
That's
And
Tolkien.
the road wordier says Robert Jordan did with world culture what Tolkien did with languages. That is true because Robert Jordan's insane amount of different cultures in the Wheel of Time surpasses Tolkien. Tolkien doesn't have that many cultures,
No, Tolkien
you
had
know?
a very narrow focus, but he didn't want to have it either. Yeah, and Archer Collin,
No.
what you say there is yes and no. He when he said he didn't specifically say not to be Tolkien, it wasn't like he sought out to not be Tolkien. He was more saying we're different. We have a completely different worldview. So my fantasy is not going to be Tolkien's fantasy because, like I was saying, I think it's in that same interview. It's like Tolkien's world was not my world.
Yeah.
Tolkien, yeah,
And then
and that's what
people
it was. It
go,
wasn't like. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and then people lose their mind and go, "Oh, George Martin said he doesn't like Tolkien," or something like that. It's weird. They just
Yeah. Well, and not just George Martin, but also Tolkien would be horrified if they thought that they were trying to pit them all together. But I know what you're saying. Yes, in that because the point, Archer, what I see you writing is if they were trying to make Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, like Game of Thrones. I mean, it is. It's absurd on so many different levels, and
yeah,
because
it's not the
Martin's,
same genre. I
that's a very
mean,
good point too.
yeah, because both are fantasy, but Tolkien's more high fantasy, and it's mythological fantasy. George Martin is writing a history story, but basically historical fiction with fantasy elements at the fringes of it. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
it's way different. I mean, just because it's fantasy doesn't mean it's the same genre. You know,
Yeah.
because Twilight is considered fantasy as well. That's not the
Uh,
same as the Lord of the Rings, is it?
no. And even within urban fantasy, Twilight is in its own genre, which one day I'm going to get Lady Gravemouth on. We're going to talk about the appreciation of Twilight. I will defend it from a certain point of view.
You will
Um,
defend it. She will attack it.
I'm aware, but I will. That's why it's going to be so much fun. But then again, we'll see. You
Yeah,
have to read all this
I,
stuff.
I agree with Archer Collins. I know you didn't take his comments as anti-Tolkien, but a lot of Tolkien fans do. They just put words in his mouth. I've seen it.
Correct. Yeah. And actually what you just say there, Archer, that shows me that you've actually looked at and listened to what he said. Yeah, I understood you. Sometimes it's hard to get the text from what I'm reading. It's like, yes, thank you for clarifying that. And yes. Boo Bo because of Twilight probably. Yes, Luffy likes Tolkien. With just The Hobbit, he is still a classic children's writer who influenced fantasy. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
his work is fantastic, but it's not like I think it's unfair though that all the writers that have actually done more, you know,
Mhm.
uh, are automatically placed beneath them as a default, even by people who haven't read them, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to take things as they are and not project onto a writer or even that, or even with history we see that where people are wanting to project different ideas. It's like, no, this is what they were seeking to do. So sometimes when people bash Twilight, I'll just dip a little bit into it. It's like, it's stupid, it's for girls, it's for this, and I'm like, and what's your point? That's exactly what it's supposed to be. Twilight does exactly what it's supposed to be. So it's like getting mad that Days of Our Lives is written like a soap opera. Days of Our Lives is a soap opera. Archer, I'm so happy you said that. Sparkly Vampires, Harry Dresden would laugh his head off. I have just started reading the Dresden books and I love them. Love them. They are so good. Again, a total different kind of fantasy and not serious. Okay, it's serious, but not serious. You know what I mean? It's like on a different level. It is so much fun. Look, zombies here. Yeah, yes, 200 character mind doesn't mean expression deep thoughts. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I never argue on Twitter because you can't get it across. You just can't. Um, but no, I love this. I love the fact that here at Mr. Martin Muses we can have these discussions. Road Warrior. I keep wanting to call you Warrior. I think that's a great pun, by the way. I think Tolkien is helped by exposure. At one time, it was second only to the Bible in sales. That's a lot of copies laying around. Well, yes,
Yeah.
it's.
Also, at the for the first few decades, it didn't even have competition.
Mhm.
Robert Jordan, when he wrote The Wheel of Time, he had plenty competition. He had, well, Tolkien by default. He had, Feist, Terry Brooks, Terry Goodkind, Terry Pratchett, all kinds of fantasy writers were his competition, right?
Yeah, total
And
different
I
world.
mean, yeah, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, what have you, so many things. That was not around when Tolkien wrote. So he kind of had a little bit of a monopoly for a while there. But
Hmm.
I mean, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s and you got into fantasy, you had so much great stuff that was just pouring into the bookstores. You
Hmm.
know, it
That
was
was
yeah.
yeah, as a main time. Yes, and absolutely, Liffy. Uh, he's talking about Tolkien. He was into Norse culture, and along with Ship, he promoted our culture. Tolkien was not just a writer. Yeah, and
Well,
this is
George
go
Martin
for it,
does
Steve.
the same because Game of Thrones is about Ragnarok. It's
Mm,
literally the Ragnarok story. The war with the who gets the throne and stuff is basically the period of strife that happens before Ragnarok kicks in, which is
mm,
Ragnarok is a long winter where frost and fire giants attack the world.
yeah.
So, and you know, here's one example of that. Thor dies before Ragnarok and then comes back during the final battle. Um, the first one of the first to die in the Game of Thrones is King Robert. He parties a lot. He drinks. He whores around. He uses a war hammer and is born on Storm's End. That's Thor.
Hmm. Yep. See, and that's what you would know, knowing it so much more than we do. And I want to comment on what Luffy was also saying about like Tolkien, the culture, and the Norse culture. That's why what they're doing right now, the Wizards of the Coast, with those race swapping of the characters, it's it's like, listen, this isn't your culture to fuck around with. It's someone else's culture, and that's why it's just so yucky. It's like they're just playing in. It's like, no, this is a culture and mythology and all of that that's thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, a lot older than your stupid Wizards of the Coast. Oh, I don't know, maybe I'm an American something who maybe picked up a fantasy book once. And it's just very annoying to have such a disrespect for the Norse, the Scandinavian culture, and their mythology, and they're just tossing it out. And then if you have a problem with it, well, you're the one with the problem. It's totally, ugh, I hate it. It's not even my
Yeah,
culture that's being shat on.
yeah. Road Warrior asks if Tyrion is Loki. No, he is not. Tyrion is Fafnir. Fafnir is a dwarf whose dad is the richest man in the world. He kills his dad, flees the lands, and later becomes a dragon. Tyrion is a dwarf. He kills his dad, who is the richest man in the world, seemingly, and will become a dragon symbolically by writing one in the later books, I believe.
Hmm. Well, there you go. You see, and that's just the kind of thing that I don't know about. That sounds great. I am having Sir Christopher Lee voice Death with genius casting. Was he killed by a giant snake?
Oh,
Um,
he's talking about Thor during the final battle. Thor will return in the form of Gendry. Remember that when the giant snake is Daenerys, by the way. She's gonna travel around the world and bite her own tail, right? Symbolized by
oh,
the dragon, because her dragon and army is growing as she goes further east. But Thor returns through Gendry, which is his bastard son, who has a bull's helmet. If you read the North, the mythologies, Thor uses a bull's head as bait to trap the giant serpent, and Gendry has a
dude.
bull's head helmet. I mean, here's another one. This is there's a sea god called Njord in Norse mythology. He is part of a rebellion against the Aesir, and he's on the losing side. And as punishment, he is sent ashore to live with wolves for 9 years. He's also described as genderless in some of the poems, I guess. And he later goes to hell and back. That's Theon Greyjoy. Theon Greyjoy is part of the Greyjoy rebellion, right? And he has to
Huh.
live with the Starks, wolves. Guess for how long? 9 years. And he's
Oh.
genderless, isn't he? Later on.
Oh, because you see,
Yeah.
well,
And then
maybe
you have here's another good one. Sam Tarley. He is Heimdall. Heimdall, also known as the Watcher on the Wall, right?
mhm.
Heimdall is described as the wisest and the palest of gods. Pale can also mean cowardly, by the way, uh, if you apply it that way. And the Bifrost Bridge is the wall. It's made of ice, right?
Uh-huh.
And Heimdall is supposed to blow a horn to signal Ragnarok. Sam Tarley has a horn. He finds one in, what is it, book one, book two? And
Okay.
he's born on Horn Hill. And like I said, he's a watcher, same as Heimdall, because the watcher's on the wall, right? The Night's Watch. I mean, he
Huh.
literally says it when he takes the oath. I'm the watcher on the wall.
Dude. Well, you know what? We need to sometime do just a dedicated to this because I'm just fascinated. And speaking of which, yeah, that's what Zombie Box Review says. I love listening to these streams. You guys make connections to things that I wouldn't usually make on my own. Um, Seek, I'm sorry, Timon says, "Who's Balder?" I don't know. I don't know what. Well, Seek
Oh, it's one of
Christopher
the
says.
gods. I'm not sure who. I haven't identified him in the book yet.
Okay, and then
Yeah, Thor is a selfish slob, correct. And George Martin, in his books, always has people say the gods are cruel. It's repeated all through the series. The characters who are based on gods are the cruel ones. They're the ones who
interesting because
does cruelty.
okay, Because I just want to read aloud for those that maybe aren't watching but listening. Thor is not a hero in Norse mythology, says Luffy. He is a selfish slob that travels around with Loki making trouble. Well, you see, I wouldn't have known that. I have a Norse mythology and stuff for dummies book that Steve had
Yeah, I
recommended.
mean,
It's not called for
selfish,
dummies, but
selfish slob. That's
yeah.
King Robert, isn't it?
Absolutely. And he's selfish and makes,
Yeah.
yeah, my gosh. Well done. Um, Okay, and Archer Clone says goes to hell and back. So Orpheus, though, well, that's Greek mythology, but but Orpheus has a little bit of a different theme to his going to the underworld. Um, I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
Um, I don't know.
Okay. Oh, good answer. All right. All right. Luffy's God says Boulder is the biggest hero in Norse stories. He is loved by all, and the reason we have mistletoe at Christmas. Well, hey.
It was killed by mistletoe.
Yikes.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, the god of virility in Norse mythology is Frey. Walder Frey, over 100 years old and still makes babies constantly. I
mm,
mean, the name's right there, Frey.
you're right. Well, there we go. Okay. This is fascinating, but I gotta bring it into this party. I'm sorry, but I love this. I love this discussion. Zombie Box Reviews, I'm with you there too. He says, my knowledge of North mythology is rudimentary at best. And do I have my book? Because Stieg had recommended a book for people like me.
Well, here's
It was a really good introduction.
here's another cool one. You know Fenris, the great wolf, right?
Mm-hmm.
He gets chained by its hind legs by the god Tyr, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tyr later loses his hand as a consequence. Uh, Jaime Lannister chains Bran by paralyzing him from the waist down, hind legs, right? And later loses a hand.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, it's full of stuff. It's loosely based on it though, because you can't do Norse mythology verbatim because it's very open and general. You know.
Mhm. Well, and Martin was not doing an allegory. You know, just because something is applicable doesn't mean it's a one to one thing. Very similar with
Well,
Tolkien and stuff.
here's another thing. After Ragnarok has ended, there's only a couple of children left. One of them is called Leaf. Well, one of the children of the forest in Game of Thrones is called Leaf.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Long. Oh, well, hello, Riker 76. No worries, no worries. Just happy you're here, and I'm always happy you're here. And Zombie, I might send you that book because it's a really good book that helps. I mean, I had to study Norse mythology just like everything else in my history degree, but I didn't deep dive into it. And how do I say this? For the most part, nothing will compare with growing up with these stories. You know, I can read a book, but this isn't part of my culture. It's not something I grew up with. It's not things we talk about. It's not Christmas or, customs, that are it's just not part of who I am, and so I will never know it the same way that Stieg will or Luffy, because that's their
Well,
world.
you also have a Hodor in Norse mythology. It's spelled Hodr, and he's a big, powerful, dumb giant who doesn't do anything wrong to anyone. He's nice, except when he's tricked. So when Bran wargs into him, like the trickery happens.
Ah,
I mean,
well, there we are.
it literally has a Hodor.
Hold on. Well, there you are. All right. Well, as I wrap up this get together, this has been really a fun stream. I'm really glad I did this. Steve, where can we find you?
Um, on your channel, not this week, but the next one.
Mm-hmm. The
I
Magician
think.
Master.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
a week from Saturday.
on maybe on Mara's channel Wednesday for the Cringe
Mhm.
Factory, but it's kind of up in the air because uh, she has work done being done on her house, so uh,
Yep.
she doesn't know if it will be done or not. But and then we're doing another top 10 soon. Top 10 video game. Sorry, no, top 10 TV show intros. That includes animated TV shows as well.
Mm, cool. Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. I wasn't sure about Wednesday night, tomorrow night. And yes, I did want to acknowledge this Archer Colin about the War of the Roses. He did. Yes, it's some of this mixed up with the War of the Roses. He has definitely said that, and
Yeah,
those are the connections. Yeah, those are the connections I made because that's what I know about from history.
yeah,
So yes.
and those are accurate as well because the war aspect of Ragnarok, or rather that what happens before Ragnarok, there's a period of strife and war and famine, brothers killing brothers, and patricide. It's all specified. So you have patricide with Tyrion and Tywin. You have Stannis killing Renly as the brother killing brother. You have the war for the throne, and you have all kinds of illnesses in the Riverlands and all that stuff, and the grayscale stuff is happening.
Mhm.
So, and people are starving in the Riverlands and all the way up to Winterfell as well. So you have the famine too,
Yeah.
and that's basically the shit that happens that that people are busy with, and they don't take Ragnarok seriously. And you see that in the books as well. They keep warning about stuff happening north of the wall, but nobody's listening.
Mhm.
They're too busy fighting for the throne.
And the connection with the War of the Roses, you know how there's the War of the Five Kings.
Yeah.
During the War of the Roses, there was at least four kings. Let's see, I don't know if it was completely five. You know, it was Edward the Fourth, it was Henry the Sixth, and Henry the Seventh, and Richard the Third. So the four kings, but same idea. There was
Well, to be fair, it's kind of four in Game of Thrones too, because Renly gets killed off right off the bat without having fought any battles.
yeah. That's true. Well, one of the contenders, the heir to Edward the Fourth, the potential heir to the fourth king, would have been the brother George, who they literally, true story, drowned in a vat of wine. Oh, I am an idiot. Edward the Fifth, the boy in the tower. He was the king, and he was executed. They we don't know how they were executed, but they were in the tower. Well, there you go. Again, it's not a one-to-one comparison, but it sure does rhyme. And since himself did say
Well,
so, George R. R.
pe-
Martin, that
uh,
were the roses.
uh, one thing to keep in mind with all kinds of stuff like this, inspired by doesn't equal based on.
True. Yeah. And yeah. And he even says, yeah, that there's a connection. Well, to all those things, Bran Tudor. Well, hopefully one of the better tutors. There's a tutor. Gosh, I'm really getting off topic. I'm trying to wrap this up. The mother of Henry the Seventh. Um, that tutor. She was Margaret Beaufort. Totally slandered in the miniseries version. That is not who she was. So just take that and toss that out the window. She was a great woman. And I think isn't it interesting that these feminist pains in the ass when they make their revision of history, they take a woman who truly was, one could argue, kind of feminist, the most powerful woman in England. She had more power than the queen herself, the queen consort of Henry the Seventh. And her influence is still held today, but they decided to make her into a psycho because they suck. All right, I am not going to continue anymore. Yes, he was at his own request, but if I wouldn't do that. Video idea says Timon difference between inspired by face. You know what? I might because a lot of people get that confused with Tolkien as well, and I sometimes get judged a little bit. It's like no, I I understand the difference. Henry did win the War of the Roses, even kind of by default. Well, no, not by default. He Henry the VII. He won it. Well, by default, you mean all the other kings that died. But Richard III, yeah, he literally took that crown. That was badass. Okay, you know what? I'm going to do a separate stream on this or some videos because this is my area. Yay, I know what I'm talking about now. We'll get back to that zombie box houses. I will steal Stieg another time, and we will do a whole big thing about the mythology and all that because it is.
The White Walkers represent the frost giants.
Well,
there is a bit in the Norse mythology about the sons of Muspel, who will attack the Bifrost Bridge with the help of Surtur the Black. The sons of Muspel is the sons of Craster, White Walkers.
Well, there you go. There you go. And
the
I do bow down before.
The fire giants involved are obviously the dragons.
Okay. And I do bow down before you, Archer Colin, because this is your history. And I knew what you meant. I just sometimes when I say things, I do like to clarify. And of course, please, let me know. I'm always here to learn. Let's see. Road Warrior, thank you so much. The stream was fun and informative. Well, thank you. And everyone listening here, present and past, future, and in the other dimensions, please like, share, and subscribe. And especially subscribe because I'm that desperate. No, I'm on the final stretch. I would like to get to 1,000, but more importantly, I like seeing you all in the chat. And if you subscribe, then you'll be able to see when new things come up, and you always keep me on my toes and add so much information, so much fun stuff. It's just great. So thank you everyone that's here. Yeah, exactly, Derek. Yeah. And that's what these musings are. I need to do more of these musings. It's not a secret that I am in a caregiving situation, and I have been working a lot too when I am not, but now that school's out, no more orchestras. So you'll hopefully see some more, and I will work out the schedule accordingly. Really, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Archer College. Thank you, Zombie Box. The whole gang that came in tonight. Now, the next bar crawl is scheduled for Thursday. I don't want to announce the guest because she, her schedule is up in the air. So I'm not going to announce it yet. But please stay tuned. There will be another bar crawl this weekend, hopefully, my guest. Next Monday, we're looking to have Matt Wilkins, if you're familiar with him, probably one of the best, I think, EU channel there is out there. And I'm just laying it out there. His channel is magnificent.
Yeah, he actually talks about the EU as well.
Yes, he does. And he knows it, and he's positive, and he's just the best. He also likes to talk about things like board games and the like. And so that's the territory we're going into. It is not going to be an EU bar crawl. It is going to be maybe some things you don't hear him talking about too often, even if it is some of the board game stuff he has on his channel. So please subscribe to him if you have not already. Also, Captain America, JT Cap, is scheduled, and I am going to be making an appearance on his channel. Also, keep your eyeballs open on Miss Martin Muses for some more videos. I have a video coming out with Eowyn, a little bit of the race swapping and why it matters. Gosh, you don't mess with my girls. I mean, it's bad enough you mess with my Aragorn, but when you take really solid female heroes of mine, they're trying to erase when they're not erasing women, they're taking away our women. It's like really. So I'm going to do a video.
Here's the thing: a lot of people missed with that, because race swapping, yeah, but they also claim that she's a knight.
Oh,
which she is. Oh, she isn't. But if you think about it, if she's already a knight, then her killing the Nazgul isn't that big of a deal. It's more a big of a deal if she's a fairly untrained non-warrior.
I know.
Because that means her achievement is even greater. If she was already a kick-ass knight, then she's just doing what a knight does.
Oh, I am going to get into that because it also takes away from a lot of who she is as a woman because she describes herself and is described as a shield maiden, a maiden warrior, yeah, woman, a lady. All of her titles, all of the things that sing her praises are about her womanhood. And what
Yeah,
do
and
those
the
fuckers do? They make her into, take all of her honors and make them masculine.
yeah, and another
Fuck
thing
that.
is the Rohirrim didn't even have knights. They didn't have those titles.
That too. Yeah, I will get into it. Oh my gosh, I could talk about Awen all day. Maybe we'll do a spec for Awen Street, but I am going to be touching on some of these things. And I'm being careful a little bit with the video because I think when they call her Human Knight, that might be a class like in the game. However, they're still calling her a Human Knight because at other times they call, okay, riddle me this, Steek. They call her in one thing, Awen the Shield Maiden, Human Knight.
Yeah,
Choose one.
a shield maiden is not cavalry.
No, duh. And but it's like right there is an oxymoron. So I'm gonna have a video about that. I promise you, my strawberry shortcake is gonna come out. My mom made me for my birthday for all of us. We all shared it. A strawberry shortcake, and I put that together. So if you want to get some secondhand diabetes, please watch it. I will be putting that together, and I have my Riemann Feist. I do have the sourcing that I needed to complete my Riemann Feist buyout, so keep an eye open on that. And of course, please keep your eyeballs open for any pub crawl or musings that might pop up here and there, and a magician master a week from Saturday. Okay. Oh wait, really quickly because this is actually something that I may not know. Magic the Gathering Knight is a class, so you have a card that all knights get a +1. She gets that bonus.
Yeah, even though Eowyn was never a knight, so she's misplaced in the class system. Then
Okay.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. See, I suspected it had something to do with gameplay, or if gameplay is that's the right word. But thank you for the clarification. Yeah. But
yeah,
still, like I said, they're calling her a masculine. They have to make her a dude. But and I'm going to go into that and why that's problematic. But that's not the worst of it. It's a little bit of I referred to earlier about just this total lack of respect for Northern culture. When I say Northern, of course, I'm talking about Norse. Well, isn't that what North and Norse? Isn't that all? That's where it comes from, right? The
yeah,
etymology. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's well, it's not like Marvel hasn't done it for decades, but you know,
Oh yeah, they completely suck. But what? But Tolkien is in a whole other territory, and yeah, exactly. Archer Collins and Arthur did say a joke about EU because on this side of the pond that means something different. Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. You don't have to talk about the politics of it, but uh, on the one hand, it's shit for me because I found out I have to get an extra visa if I want to go to England. On the other hand, well done, England and UK for. I wish Ireland would follow. I don't know if I'm expressing your opinion, but that's definitely mine. Gosh, look what the EU has done to Ireland. It's just a mess. Just ignore the game abilities, magic plays, need their identity. Well, that too. Yeah, I mean, it's just complicated on so many different levels. So, anyways, have a great day. Oh, sorry.
I'm actually not allowed into the US because I'm not vaccinated.
Oh, I think they're after dropping it though.
Okay,
So now you don't
but
have an excuse. But no.
currently I'm not allowed, which is
Yeah.
fine by me.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to fly.
Yeah, that as well.
Yeah.
And then avoid pissing off people and get killed.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I was looking at the Quark video because there was a guy from Quark that showed up, And that you had the nerve to say, since you were a Viking, you were going to rob a church. And I said, don't do that in Texas because you'll get shot. And you said, no, you'll lose because remember the Alamo? It was just awful. That's the reason why Steve would not survive in the U.S. Is definitely not Texas. All right. Again, I want to thank everyone. Word Warrior. If I did not get to everyone, please,
Well,
I apologize.
here's the thing
Timon?
though. If I lose to Texas, that means I'll get third place.
I'm not even going to talk about it. Oh, good. All right, so we're on the same page, but I was cautious because England's not, or the UK is not my nation, and sometimes I get annoyed when people who aren't Americans try to comment on stuff. But okay, you're cool. If I miss anyone, I do apologize. It is not an omission; it's just things move. But everyone that has shown in today, everyone listening on the replay, I cannot thank you enough. And I hope that maybe our little musings help you get through your day because life sucks. I do have to go because I need to ride my bike. The weather is favorable. We're between thunderstorms, so I need to take advantage. So have a great day, everyone. Have a great day. And of course, thanks to Steve. And be certain
Be
to play
certain
a
to
video
remember the
game.
Alamo.
Yes, remember the album. Oh, good. I don't